So we have about 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, or until Lucy makes us stop, for people to ask questions. So what I'd like to do is take 4 or so questions so that the panelists can hear what you'd like them to talk about, and then they'll weave it all together. So questions? Rachel's got a mic. Questions, comments?
And quickly, while Rachel is finding someone with a question, raise your hand and she'll come find you. I want to put in a plug for an action on behalf of my AAPI sisters at NAPOF, at National Asian Pacific American Women's Forum. As some of you may know, there is a kind of policy called Prenatal Non-Discrimination Act, which is a totally bogus name. It bans so-called race and sex selective abortion. What this is an abortion ban that targets women of color, specifically Black and AAPI women. This policy is the logical and horrific next step after the billboards that were put in Latina and Black communities saying the most dangerous place for a Black or Latino child is in the womb. So this is an incredibly, this is an awful racist policy, anti-immigrant policy. Our sisters at NAPOF are leading the charge to defeat it. So please get out your phones, go on the Twitter, look up NAPOF, and they're going to be tweeting messages to Franks, who's trying to lead this effort in Congress, and please support NAPOF in their efforts to defeat this terrible legislation.
Great, thanks.
NAPAWF. Is that right?
So do we have a question?
Okay.
Yeah.
This is for what you just said. Like, I am one of the people who focus mostly on economic issues because I think once we reach economic equity, we can then fight for other issues. So, like, do you think we should be fighting for cultural equity before we're fighting for economic one? And if so, like, how is that approached in a way? Because, I mean, I feel like if I want to be heard, I have to be a middle class person at least, because the poorer I am, the less political power I have, because I don't have enough time to think about politics, because I have to like provide for myself. So how would we be fighting for like equity in other areas of life before we achieve the economic equity?
Are there, before they respond, are there other questions or issues people would like to have addressed?
Hi, this is Catalina Velasquez. I am undocumented and unafraid. I'm transgender and unashamed. I'm an unapologetic Latina from Colombia, and I have seen a pervasive wording and separation of LGBTQ and women, right? And so I seen that the centering of gay Inc. and patriarchy within an LGBTQ movement. Because what it sounds like is that we're not recognizing that it's lesbian women, bisexual women, transgender women, transgender men have uteruses. And so it's the centering of gay and the gay Inc. and the gay enterprises that have held hostage my movement, that have told me in front of the Supreme Court to bring down a transgender flag when they're advocating for gay marriage. And I think that in the division of women and LGBTQ, every time we say it, I feel excluded, and I feel like a footnote, and I feel like it's really difficult to take ownership of reproductive justice in all the identities I hold, because I never had healthcare until I was able to receive deferred action for childhood arrivals. It's really difficult to affirm my gender, and the pills that I take to be myself are the same contraception that is being denied to cis women. And so that's an element of that I wanted to bring, and how do we work in more synergy with one another.
Thank you. I think that gives you guys a lot to go for. So you don't all have to each have to, whoever wants to respond. Do you want to, in whichever order? I'm sorry, one more? Okay, we'll take one more, and then we'll let them go for it. Well, actually, let's get them all, and then that'll be, yeah, over here there are two. Rachel, there's one there, and one in the back. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Lillian, and I wanted to ask, and I thank you so much, Cara, for bringing up the issue of the nonprofit industrial complex. And I just wanted to know, how do we raise that like complex issue up more often, because I think we're so dependent on it that we can't vision outside of it. And we get stuck, and then we, perpetuate the very things that we are trying to prevent. But how do we break that silence in talking about the problems we see in our orgs without it being seen as something we shouldn't talk about, so that we can find solutions?
Thank you. There was one right, see it right back.
Hi, my name is Ms. Danica Ali. I am a proud transgender lesbian peace activist for the LGBTQI community.
Woo!
I want to ask you one question, and this is for every one of you all in the audience. How much are you all ready for a true abortion rights, social justice revolution in this country? Because we face an imperialistic America, very internal racist white communities with very ugly opinions towards this entire revolution. And what I'm saying to you is that if we move forward with this totally, it's not going to be nice, it's going to be pretty ugly and very nasty. And I want to know, how much are you invested in having a true revolution in this country that resonates throughout the world?
I think that gives the panelists quite a bit to address. So we're going to go back to the panelists.
All right, I can start. They're all furiously writing brilliant things, but fortunately I won't have to follow them. So I think where I'll kind of close it up is, I think we would all benefit if in our work together we can come from a place of love and a feeling of abundance. Many of us have lived our lives from a place of scarcity, and that's very real. But I think that scarcity comes into our movements in ways that show up really harmfully. So I think about Catalina, your story about being told to take down your trans pride flag at a gay marriage event. Earlier at another workshop, a speaker talked about being told to take down their abortion sign at a fair pay event. Right? So we have to stop policing how people show up to whatever it is that we're doing to our movements, because they're showing up, right? We could be more grateful and with each other and more generous with each other, and acknowledge that it's better to show up all together in our human complexity than to try to police and be, today we're only talking about fair pay, and today we're talking about gay marriage. That's not how we live our lives. So that's not how we can live in this movement. And that spirit of abundance can help us recognize that we are each other's strength. We aren't each other's liabilities. The person who asked the difficult question, they're giving you a gift. They're giving you the gift of the opportunity to open your own perspective. And I think if we can be more generous with each other, it will strengthen us in how we fight all the things that we have to fight every day.
I wanted to speak to Lillian's question, specifically about the nonprofit industrial complex piece. And I guess for me, that's kind of speaking into the power dynamics that I was talking about earlier. And the struggle is that we all are playing out our internalized, maybe it's our patriarchy, and thinking that the system that has been set up is the system we have to continue to participate in, right? And that's, because that's patriarchy at its best, right? It says this is what it's gonna be, and we all try to insert ourselves into it consistently and constantly, and so then we're scared if we want to step out. And so I think that the reality is that these environments, these conferences, places like this where we're coming together and we're creating that collective healing that Cara is talking about, we can take the time to take a collective pushback, right? We as a group need to be standing up together and saying, we don't want this shit. This isn't working for us. We want this. We need to start pushing the funders and holding them accountable. We actually need the time to actually do the work that you expect us to do. We actually need the money to be able to do it fully and with heart and with love and with care. We actually need to be able to slow down and care for ourselves. So all of these different things, but I think it's all on us. We've all swallowed the blue pill, or whatever the pill is, the wrong one, right? We've swallowed it. And we're operating as if that's okay, and then we're frustrated that we don't want to be in there. So let's just not. Like, that's the beautiful thing. We really can just make the choice to not. But we believe that we can't. So I think that this is like a really big thing that next year, let's all come together. Let's all take this year to start working on creating a network of folk that are gonna say, fuck this shit. We ain't doing it anymore. And let's find us, let's come together, and let's push back. Because it's not gonna happen until we start doing it. I mean, it's kind of like, was it Kimberly, were you the one that said it's time to stop talking about it, it's time to start actually doing it? So yeah, it's time to start doing it. I really think that it's just that simple, but we believe that it's not, because we have so many different boxes we have to check and make sure that we follow so that we can continue to get the funding. Because there is a lot of fear around, if you don't check all the boxes, you're not gonna get the funding, right? And that's real, because we all need money to be able to continue to do this work. So I think if enough critical mass of us say, F this system, maybe we can shift it.
You don't want to go? Okay. Back in my 20s, I was in a Marxist-Leninist study group, and it was a wonderful opportunity to learn about radical economics, about alternatives to capitalism, to look at the practices of other countries trying to embrace both either a socialist or a communist future. And then, leaving that aside, because I call myself a recovering Marxist now, what I discovered in the midst of doing that work around the class struggle was that I was working with a whole lot of white people who would fetishize people of color and not listen to us. You know? And I'm sad to say that that's still here. You know? We are the experts at deconstructing white supremacy, and y'all won't listen to us. You know? And are so convinced that the white way of seeing the world is the best way. And it's so prevalent on the left. I don't even want to talk about it on the right, because I know they're the assholes. Whether it's the refusal to listen to all of us when Clarence Thomas was being confirmed to the Supreme Court and Joe Biden thought he was going to trip him up over a sexual scandal, when black people said, no, he's a registered lobbyist for the government of South Africa. That's how you stop that nomination. But they didn't listen. You know, the way every time, quote, the economy gets bad, somehow this resurgence of white supremacy starts contaminating everything political. And we can just act like it's unexpected. Where did these people come from? You know, Donald Trump is turning dog whistles into wolf whistles. And y'all act like you're fucking surprised. Guess who was not surprised? You know? And so I say this from my heart, that if you want to see that class revolution, you're going to have to listen to the people who have a better analysis on the way race keeps us from even coming together. Because You cannot ignore it. You cannot make it secondary. It is the driver of what is called America. You know, colonialism, genocide, white supremacy drives this country. Other countries worship the mighty dollar, and it ain't just about the dollar. Because we live in a country where people would rather be racist than rich. You know? If I could get that memo, I could talk about it at the policy level, I could talk about it at the presidential electoral level, I could talk about it at the community level, I could talk about it in the religious level, our segregated churches. I could talk about it in so many sites of struggle that seem to be missed by radical white leftists. I don't get that. I just don't get that. Because if you're as radical as you want to be, you'd be unearthing colonialism. You'd be unearthing white supremacy. You'd be challenging the fact that America is not only at war globally, it's at war with its own people. Oh my God, and so I'm not saying it to chastise, I'm saying it is, don't understand white supremacy because you think you need to be nice to people of color. We got the memo. We know white supremacy. You need to be working to save the soul of the white race. Because until y'all get that memo, y'all will never figure this shit out.
That's a real mistake. Cara, do you have any last words?
This is the last pass.
Or you can just say what you want to say.
Take us home. Yeah. I mean, you just said it, so come on.
Right?
I mean, I just want to bring into the room, I think someone may have already mentioned it, but the occupation of Palestine really quite clearly demonstrates the relationship between white supremacy, xenophobia, population control, and economic power. And that we're still in liberal white spaces, neoliberal white spaces, and can't even speak to Palestine without being called terrorists or being called anti-Semitic, yes. And like this, to me, the quintessential, I didn't say it earlier, shit, what keeps me up at night is Christian supremacy and Zionism and religious fundamentalism. Because we're not ever going to be able to talk about sex or desire because we're still living inside the idea that sex is bad and we should repress it. And that is the root. And then I just want to offer this piece around, I mean, wow, y'all had some great questions, y'all. I think it takes multiple strategies and that we can't rely on state to define how we're going to build liberatory practice, and nonprofits are also related to state structures. So again, it's not a destination, but how do we leverage the powers that be to make this work for us when they can? And then how many of us are still running underground and running safe houses and collectives where we know no one, we hope no one is infiltrating. So that I think it takes multiple strategies in multiple places to move this work. Because most often, sometimes we are our own, limitators. I just made a new word, limitators. Sometimes we hold ourselves back, right? So this challenge, even around the trans misogyny you're speaking to, Catalina, like this perception that we can get it all in one place, we just can't. There's too much to do. There's too much fear and scarcity. So I think the better we are multi-strategized and hold multiple layers, I think the more powerful we can become.
Woo. Did anybody want to speak to the issue of trans versus women?
Anybody want
Well, I spoke to the trans misogyny and
Yeah.
but specifically.
You want to do it?
No, go ahead.
No.
No, I'm done. No, that's what I was speaking to.
We're just having a little working it out here.
Does anyone
Does anyone want to speak to the issue of trans women?
I just was asking if
Yeah.
anybody else wanted to.
Or did you think, Marisa, do you want to speak to it?
I can.
Yeah.
Go.
Sorry. So that's a very, very, very clear and heard point. It's something that I know that we in the Prison Birth Project look at and struggle with. as a group of folk who are incarcerated that are in a gender-specific facility that we work in, who oftentimes have that label of womanness stripped from them as well as every other label. I mean, you really are a number and a last name, right? And so we really embrace the word woman a lot of times, and specifically are embracing cis woman in that way and for that specific purpose. We also have done a lot of work to make sure that our language is inclusive to the experiences of all. And so we do use the separation of those two words for that reason. And and hearing what you're saying is a very clear, well-heard point that I think all of us in this room need to sit with and figure out a way to, as I said, my hope is that we can all show up to the table as our full selves. So how do we as a group hold that now is where I'm sitting at with your question, because I don't have the correct and perfect answer. I don't think anyone in this room does. But I think what I want to speak to is that you're illuminating a very important point that we all need to hold and remember, is that a lot of us have various identities that, and Monica was talking about this yesterday on the roundtable, right? Like she was talking about how when she entered the RJ movement, that was the first time that she felt like she could fully walk in the door and have all of her identities held. And so I feel like this is another growing edge moment where we're realizing that we are still not holding everybody's identities fully. So I just want to say I appreciate that you brought up that very, very important point, and that I think that the answer is that all of us need to sit with it and find a way to do that work and to sit with folk in conversation around how to make sure that we are fully inviting everyone to the table as their full selves.
Can I add a very, very short?
I'm so sorry to do this, but as you see, people need to leave. The conference will be a month long in the future so that we can do all of this because we need to do it. So what I'd like is for people to, before we give them one last big love, I want to also ask that you give love to Lucy, Mateo, Rachel, Iona Pearl, Teresa, and Johanna, the people who have been working all weekend. Thank you, great. Greta has flowers. Teresa, there's Teresa, yes. Go. And Mateo is no doubt working really hard. We want to thank all of you for coming. We want to thank everybody who gave a donation, a contribution. We want to tell you that it's also still not too late, that we really rely on it to make this conference happen, and no donation is too small or too large. So thank you, and let's hear it for this amazingly eloquent panel. Thank you all. Travel safely to wherever you're going, and we'll see you again next year.